So for today, me, I'm gonna be doing something completely different from what I've been doing. I'm recording on my computer, so camera is trash, but that doesn't matter. What I wanted to talk about today is something that I did for one of the seminars from last year, which really tickled my brain and reminded me of why I am doing a master's and why I am like going back to something that in the beginning was kind of a struggle for me. I love literature and poetry and everything else, but it was just so difficult for me to understand how to actually analyze all of these things. Um, so having having to do this kind of exercise was actually very motivating, and it reconnected with something that I love doing, which is studying the language, analyzing language, how language is being used to convey meaning or whatever. Um, but not exclusively in the sense of semantics, but also connected with phonology, graphology, morphology, etc. So one activity that I had to do obligatorily was compulsory was to choose poem and analyze it in the way that you're seeing on screen right now, which was through a mind map. This isn't really how you're supposed to do a mind map. This was my understanding of what a mind map should look like. Um, my teacher liked it, so that's good enough for me. But mind map doesn't involve this huge chunks of text, so don't take what I did as the actual correct way of doing this. This is what I did, and it was approved by the professor, so take it with a grain of salt. Every one of us is different, and teachers also correct according to their own standards and understanding of things like this. So the poem that I chose was No by Alison Brackenbury, and I recommend that you read it. I invite you to read it. Because as let's go directly into content and interpretation. Let me just zoom right in. So, this is a poem that starts off being a social critique. This poem was written in 2001, so it's already 25 years old. Time flies, but it's a timeless poem because the speaker of the poem, as you can read here, states that humanity is concerned with material goods instead of appreciating nature and art and this idea of being good enough. So in the poem, there's a lot of repetition of structures, a lot of good enough or not being good enough, being really drilled into um, the message, let's say, and how nobody is good enough, nothing is good enough, everything is lacking, and humans are rushing and coming and going, concerned with things that, at the end of the day, matter, but only in a capitalist sense, because without money you can't live. But we neglect nature, we neglect art, we neglect the things that are soul fulfilling. And so that is the first like stanza of the poem. And then there's a shift because it changes the focus to assert that humanity has a certain uniqueness which cannot be captured by technology. Um, and there seems to be a distinction established between us and they, as if these people concerned with money, were a different race or a different community or group of people, and then there's us. So there's a change in the pronouns used and the direction into which the words are being said or written. And the poem ends as the speaker expresses joy at being able to hold their beloved's hand in spite of the hardships of modern human existence. Us are the ones who can appreciate nature and escape from the mundane existence of counting coins. It applies to nowadays. It applies. So I took this model of analysis comes from a book by Simpson from 2004, which is Stylistic, a resource book for students. So I focused on, like you can see here, different aspects of the poem. So the content and interpretation, what is the poem about and how can we understand it? Which are the themes, the tone, the situation, the mood, the atmosphere, and the speaker. Then levels of language at work, which is, again, I took it directly from the book. So like I mentioned earlier, some phonology and phonetics, graphology, morphology, syntax, lexis, and semantics. So all of those levels that make up sentences or that make up language and discourse. And also, as part of what we were supposed to do, we had to write about or analyze the deviations from language. We talk a lot about foregrounding and backwarding and those different levels of foregrounding. So, there are some deviations in the poem. Again, I don't have the poem right here, then I will show you the poem. But basically, these deviations have to do with our expectations as readers and the things that we bring to the text, like our background knowledge and our background preferences, our background, like how do we speak? What kind of language do we use? And so at some points in the poem, for example, there's the appearance of O, which is the archaic spelling of O, an exclamation, which has also been used as part of a vocative. And so this calls your attention as a modern speaker because you're like, hey, that's not properly written, but it also reminds me of something else, which you used to be used in the past. So that would be a deviation because there's like a callback to a previous way of using language. And so, for example, I also mentioned that some commas may be missing. Um, this negative use or repetitive negation in order to create positives and inversions. There's one case of inversion that I couldn't for the life of me figure out what it meant. I couldn't. Um, so this is what we were supposed to do, and we had to explain which model of analysis we used and why. So let me just go real quickly through these things. So the theme has to do mainly with humanity versus capitalism, technology, humanity's uniqueness, human nature, nature and love in adversity. That is what I came up with. Each of us may arrive at different themes. The tone at the beginning was judgmental and critical, and then it becomes joyful. The situation, the speaker is commenting on their present context in which people are more concerned with money than with appreciating nature. There's two moods. The first one is pessimism during the first stanza and frustration. And in the second one, there's a change towards joy, love, hope. Yeah. The atmosphere in the first stanza is somber and hopeless, and in the second one, it is celebratory and cheerful. And the speaker is a first person shown through the use of the pronouns like me, us, they, your, and we. Regarding the levels of language, we have for phonetics and phonology, there are some repetitions of vowels and diphthongs, like in words like no, one, enough, counting, frowning, drowning, nothing, us, and sun. Sometimes it creates a sort of rhyme. It's not a fixed rhyme pattern or anything. It's sometimes it's even I rhyme. It's not like consistently rhyming all the way. Then regarding graphology, there's capitalization of the first word in a new sentence, use of commas and periods to separate ideas and signal their end, apostrophe is used for genitive, and the spelling is just common, let's say, regular, except from the O, which is the deviation. For morphology, there are inflections of verbs for present tense, continuous and simple. And then what else? Lovely, derivation from love. Um, and they are used to show that the specific time the speaker is referring to. So if they are in the present, simple and continuous, it means this person is talking about the here and now. Then regarding the syntax, sentences structured with subject and predicate. Here, I don't. Probably I'm looking at an older version, but I completed that. Maybe this was just a first draft. Um, when you start downloading and be like draft one, two, final, and all of that, it's like, ugh, I probably should do a cleaning. Um, but in most cases, it had expected syntax, except for the inversion. Then there's an aphoric repetition of no one. Similar words are used in the second stanza, like no one, nothing. So a lot of words that are connected with negation and no one, nothing, like a lack of. What else? Whereas there's the use of adjectives, there's nouns, there's verbs. And semantics, there's the insistent focus on negative meaning words in order to transmit the bad, the ugly, and the good. Words like no one and nothing, they create hyperbolic images because this is a like very um, rotund and very like I can't think of the word right now, but like there's no other option. It's just no, nothing, zero. Yeah. And then the negatives become positives. So it's a very kind of black and white-ish kind of poem. And then my model of analysis, like I mentioned, was by Simpson in a book from 2004. And in the book, he explains that what stylistics involves, which is language exploration, and more specifically, the creativity in the use of language. So I wrote that through the exploration of the different levels of language and the deviations, no shows the ways into which readers may be thrown off course when faced with a poem that seems simple and straightforward at first, but which requires appropriate layered analysis to fully grasp its complexity. Foregrounding plays a big part into how this poem develops. First, by playing on the expectations of what some readers might think poetry looks like, unusual ways of writing, breaking with conventions, using difficult words. Then, trumping such expectations, but by presenting a first stanza which looks ordinary, and therefore highlighting those regular elements. So, by tricking the reader into expecting one thing but delivering something else, we are foregrounding those things that are ordinary by opposition. Finally, delivering perhaps what the reader was initially expecting by changing the focus of the lens regarding the elements that are fronted. It confuses and creates questions. It guides the reader precisely by its crafting at each level. So by pausing to analyze each aspect, one can uncover the charged meanings behind the pointed repetitions, the uses of certain pronouns to establish contrast, and the small changes from the first to the second stanzas, which guides the reader towards the implication that is at the end of the poem. So the question that we could ask ourselves is us a completely different kind than they? Which is what I had talked about, this us versus they, we versus them, this comparison, this contrasting. Nothing seems to be amiss at first, but as readers advance through the poem, the subtle differences are precisely what allows simplicity to be so effective in its conveying of intended meaning and feeling. So, like I said, this was a very fun activity to do. It was the first time that I had analyzed a poem in this way, like visually like this. Analyzing poetry like this, I already had done in my BA, in my bachelor's degree. But getting back into this kind of analysis reminded me of why I like literature or analyzing literature so much. Um, so this, I just wanted to show real quick something that was very fun to do. I had a lot of fun doing this. I enjoyed it a lot. I was a little nervous because I would look at what my classmates would say regarding what they were doing, and I checked out some examples from other people, and I was like, am I doing the right thing? Is this too much? Like, I would look at this and be like, I hope my teacher doesn't kill me. But I actually got a very good grade. So that is very helpful for me. So before I finish, let me share with you the poem. So here's the poem. So this is the first stanza, and this is the second one. So I will read. No one is ever good enough or kind enough. No one stays awake through the lovely rush of rain which fills our dark. No one can hold the music. They are counting coins or frowning. They are toppling. They are drowning. No one is good. But nothing is as quick as us. No screen can match us. Tapes weird catch us. Nothing tilts like sun to light from sad. Nothing in all history can reach to take your hand from me. The dark, the rain's gift. Oh, we should be glad. So you see, it's just two stanzas, something very quick to read, but it holds so much meaning in what it's trying to convey. And I think that is the beauty, of course, of doing poetry, of doing literature. It's how can I pack all of this energy, this message that may be so heavy, into words that are easy to understand for the regular reader in this case, and that can deliver a punch, that can, on the one hand, in the first stanza, for example, have you agree and be like, yeah, society is trash and everybody is so concerned with this and that's depressing. And then taking all of these things that perhaps are not so good and turning them into nothing is as quick as we are. No screen can match our humanity. The tape wears catch our voices, our movements. Like this is what we are. Like nothing tilts like sun to light from sad. Now that I'm thinking about it right now, like coming from the darkness into the light, like going from our sadness to happiness or joy. Um, Again, this idea of going from a very pessimistic kind of approach and view of the world to something that is very positive and heartwarming and hopeful. Because I think that I chose this particular poem because of the situation that we are living at the moment. And I think that at the end of the day, we should all come back to this poem and think about those things that perhaps we take for granted, those things that perhaps we stop really valuing, and just take a step back and think, okay, what things help me get through the day? What things inspire me to keep going beyond all of the negativity and all of the things that could be better, right? Um, so I thought it was a very beautiful poem to work on. And again, when I read it, it didn't represent a challenge. And I think that most of the time, those poems that don't look like a lot are actually the ones that have the most juice out of them, because it really forces you to go into the nitty-gritty of, okay, this person is writing in a very simple, straightforward manner. They're not using any fancy words. All of these you can just understand, and the repetition helps a lot with the rhythm, with the pacing, with the drilling of what this person is trying to transmit, and then it does a 180. And so I think it was a very good activity. It was a very I don't want to say inspiring necessarily, but for somebody that hadn't done this kind of analysis in quite a few years, it helped me gain back confidence that hey, I can do this. I'm not rusty. I just need to take the layer of dust off of the things that I know how to do and that I'm good at and just get back into that. So that is what I wanted to share for this. Well, I wanted it to be a quick, simple video, but oops, what am I sharing? Okay, so I think I will stop it here. Feel free to check out the poem for yourself and to read more of Alison and to read some poetry once in a while. It's a good exercise.